Hi and welcome to a wonderful yummy Yin Yoga session today. Make sure you arrive, freeing up the head and shoulders and getting ready to receive. Today's session is all about the core and integrated ribs to the spine as a free movement of arm and shoulders connected to spine and core, wide collarbones, and of course a free neck and head. Sounds good? Namaste, let's start. We begin by turning sideways on our mat, placing our feet hip width apart, heels connected to the sit bones, integrate the shoulders, and then slowly elongate from your core as you roll back of your shoulders touching the floor, head releasing down. You can step your feet in a little bit, and I want you to feel that both sides of your waist are equally lengthened and you're neither overarching nor imprinting your spine. Your pelvis is neutral, pubic bone at the same height as your ASISs, and both sides of your waist equally lengthened. From here, release the head one more time. Remember the wide collarbones and place your heads over your ribcage, as this is now all about breathing or learning to breathe while keeping your ribs integrated. As they disintegrate, your middle back will lift off the floor, so watch the position of your middle back. So as you inhale, feel that the air is actually rising into your middle back and that your collarbones are still wide and your shoulders released. As you exhale, the space between your front ribs may help you to keep the engagement of the rib cage, the connection to the spine. So let's try this. As you inhale, your fingers may just come apart a little bit. And as you exhale, feel the ribs drawing closer together, anchoring to your navel and to your spine. Try to keep this as much as you can, using all layers of your abdominals. So gently and subtly. So without the sensory feedback of your fingers and hands, let's observe the position and the feedback of the floor around the middle back as we breathe. So with an inhale, feel the elongation, a long line from pubic bone to chest. And with an exhale, feel your whole body melting in the floor. But now, why not, if we have found this, challenge it. So with an inhale, lift your arms, keeping the ribs in. And with an exhale, let them descend back onto the floor, keeping the collarbones wide. Stay with the movement. The arms just come perpendicular to the floor. And with an exhale, find again the back melting. Observe where your breath is actually going to, so your body can relearn this movement and be re-educated. Ribcage integrated. You can also go with one arm if you still need the feedback from your hand. So you can feel your arm coming up to a 90-degree angle to the floor, and with an exhale, sinking again without you losing your ribs and disengaging your ribcage from the spine. After all this focused attention, release the head for a little bit. Watch the shoulders as you turn. And then from here, let's take the challenge a notch further. Start by inhaling with integrated ribs, your arms overhead to your ears, maybe, and with an exhale, feel the upper back releasing, the mid back connected to the floor. And you can even go a little bit further than to your ears as you reach the arms overhead. Maybe you can keep the ribs, the wide collarbones, as your fingers or finger touches the floor. Focus on the ribs and the connection of the mid-back to the floor, and try to coordinate breathing and movement. Next arm movement, and I mean this in every sense of the word, overreaching and back to neutral. So as you pull your arms towards the sky or ceiling, feeling your whole upper back lifting off the floor, inhale, and with an exhale descend and find the release, the width of your collarbones. Give your lungs a lot of space to take in prana, and then we take it a little bit further with a core integrated twist and reach. So lift your left arm, make sure you root it back down into the socket, and then from your core with an exhale come up, and with an inhale descend back onto the floor again. I want you to focus on the back side of your left shoulder firmly glued to the earth, and the rotating, twisting motion with the lift emanating from your core, your right front sideline. So let's try the other arm. Lift the right arm, root it back to the earth. Make sure you integrate from the core as you lift and twist towards your arm and return to the floor. Try to feel the movement coming from deep within the pelvis and extending throughout the spine to the top of your head. Body sensing as the arms descend. Find if the body needs a release, like a rolling back of the shoulders or an elongation of the base of the skull towards the crown of your head. And as we get ready, let's move on to the next arm movement, which I call spreading your wings, opening doors. So with an inhale, let the arms descend to and hover over the floor. With an exhale, draw them back to the midline, palms facing. And with an inhale, I want you to focus on the stable pelvis, core, and integrated ribs, shoulders away from the ears. And as you exhale, feel it's actually a whole body movement. Your heels drawing towards your sit bones over your sidelines, draw in the arms. Keep an awareness of the internal and external lines of your arms as you let them descend onto the floor. Rest and regroup. Home base. Integrated breathing and internal rotation of shoulder. I apologize for filming the left side first. So I want your left arm be placed in a 45-degree angle away from your hips, fingers facing away from you, palms turned down towards the floor. Keep everything stable. With an inhale, roll the shoulder forward, lift the upper back off the floor, and with an exhale, descend. Focus on the inhalation flowing into your right collarbone, widening it. And as you exhale, feel the stable ribs. So let's go to the right side. After 3 repetitions on the left, and you can see it here. With an inhale, I rotate my right shoulder forward, and with an exhale, I let it come back to neutral and descend into the floor, the collarbone widening. So you gain a basic integrated awareness of the placement of your ribs and the width of your collarbones. Allow the shoulders to release spontaneously and have the release flowing up through the base of your skull out the top of your head. Let's go to the internal shoulder rotation of both arms at the same time, palms glued to the floor. So with an inhale, let both shoulders roll forward, and with an exhale, let them roll back, returning to the earth. Wide collarbones, regroup in neutral. Let's go a bit further. As you inhale, lift your arms, palms facing. Feel the movement coming from your base. And keep the arms at a 90-degree angle as you rotate your palms towards your nose, and then with an exhale, away from them. So inhale, palms facing your head, external rotation, and exhale, palms facing away from you, internal rotation. Keep the shoulders away from your ears, and feel the movement arising in a V shape, coming from your pelvis, sit bones, and the pelvic floor. And as you breathe, feel the kegel that's arising towards your shoulders. Exhale, shoulders and arms sink into the earth as you release. And after all this focused work, allow yourself to process and release your head and your brain by placing a lower edge of a block facing sideways underneath the base of your skull. I want you to feel that this actually really should sense very relaxing and releasing. So you can let your head drop completely, your shoulders drooping like curtains over your collarbones to the floor, and then start moving your head very slowly, enjoying the movement from right to left. And be so still that you're aware of tiny jerks, knots in your back, of your neck, tensioning or releasing of the jaw, and keeping the head really heavy. Maybe there's a spontaneous shoulder release as you just saw. And if you find something tensed up after a couple of rounds from left to right to center, just stay at this point and massage yourself gently. So it's more about the tempo and the awareness. And release back down again at center. And start to use your chin and awareness of your breath and your ribs to draw circles in front of you. You can also just lift the chin straight up, and with an exhale have it descend, feeling the base of the skull elongating. Regroup at center, and then again focus on the tip of your chin. Maybe you need a sensory feedback for a moment to extend the nodding and the circle we just did into an infinity loop, ascending at the center. And go in one direction and then the other, feeling the back of the neck, the base of the skull, your forehead released, your shoulders drooping. This should be enjoyable, easy. No pain. Just relief with inhale and exhale, and the sinking again. And then again from your core, inhale and lift the head. With an exhale, put the block away, take it out, so we can go to the next movement. I want you to use your block with the upper edge just underneath the lower tip of your shoulder blades. And we are again coming from shoulder bridge position, feet hip width apart. And this is a less sturdy block, so it wiggles a little bit as I place it. You can also use cork blocks, they are more stable, but we were traveling at a point. And place it as shown before with the lower tip underneath your rib cage and the upper tip just at the corner or edge of your shoulder blades, lower end of your shoulder blades. Elongate the skull and draw it away from the torso a little bit and let the head fall back. If this feels uncomfortable for your cervical spine, place a pillow underneath your head. Feel the rib region and the integration of the ribs with the upper abdominals, and then lift one arm with an inhale, and with an exhale start drawing small circles. It doesn't matter if you go clockwise or counterclockwise. First, Be aware of the connection to the base of your pelvis, sit bones and heels, and be also aware of internal and external rotation. Feel free to experiment with this. So 3 clockwise, 3 counterclockwise. Observe the right shoulder and if it's moving with it or staying still, and then complete by releasing the arm, and we are switching sides. So with an inhale from your pelvic floor and sit bones, lift the right arm and start again with this conscious circling and awareness of internal and external rotation of your humerus in the shoulder socket. Left shoulder stays drooped as we switch from clockwise to counterclockwise circles. Integration of the ribs and long deep breaths before you return to center. Inhale one more time. Exhale, releasing the right arm. Support yourself with your strong core and the ribs closed as you, with an inhale, lift your head, and with an exhale, bringing or rooting your elbows and hands to the floor, removing the block and rolling back down for an enjoyable release, and checking back in how we're doing. Breath flowing freely, and you can root your legs just to find the neutral pelvis again and regroup with a neutral spine. Checking back in from center before we move on to our next section, which is the fiery conscious core. So as we start, we want to make sure that our core and our ribs are integrated, especially if we twist and move the torso away from our hips. So what we're doing here is bringing our legs up into relaxed tabletop position, and then keeping both shoulders to the best of our abilities glued to the floor, dropping our legs, toes touching, knees hip width apart if this feels good for your hip and knee joints, from side to side. With an inhale, you will come back to center, and with an exhale, twist to the side. Head may turn into or towards the other direction. Regrouping at center, and then letting the head drop to the right, the legs to the left. And coming back up, observing the movement of the upper body, the upper shoulders, shoulders rooted, hands pressing into the floor, and then releasing the hands and arms one more time as we twist to our right, and then releasing the legs completely. Feel that there is an elongation between your left shoulder and your left hip, and that both shoulders are again connected to earth, so you can direct the breath through Uddiyana Bandha, navel to spine, and also integration of the ribs towards where the breath may flow, and I would also add linger. Take your time for this wonderfully opening, relaxed pranayama here. Releasing the lower back and releasing the neck. And then slowly return with an inhale to center. And with an exhale, regroup the shoulder girdle and the arms, feeling the base of the neck elongated, wide. And then let's drop the legs to the other side. We'll go to the left here. Right shoulder stays rooted. Again, find that the right hip and the right shoulder moving slightly away from each other as you breathe and root. This gives you a wonderfully access to the auxiliary breathing muscles in between your ribs. And maybe you can feel also slight movement in your sternum. So you can feel your breath throughout your torso going in all directions, like an internal massage that you can actually direct to certain areas of your body. So enjoy this slow sensing and massaging, and then return with your head to center. Inhale, and with an exhale, bring both legs up again and slightly releasing your hips, placing one foot down, then the other. Stay relaxed throughout the neck area, the head is heavy, and then you can roll the shoulders back one more time and feel, if you can, with an inhale, lift your pelvis from the center and the push of your feet and hands and arms until it rises enough so the front of your shoulders are actually widening and broadening, so there's a good nice stretch for the front of the rotator cuff. The base of the neck is widened, long away from your shoulders, the sternum lifted, the lower back stabilized, and you enjoy again the breath moving throughout the torso and massaging and releasing your internal organs with the aid of gravity. You can even release the arms completely and rotate them outward, palms facing up. As you roll down with an in and exhale, focusing on staying rooted throughout the shoulder girdle and arms as you elongate the spine, finding earth again, regrouping. So try this one more time. With an inhale, come up, and with an exhale, place the palms facing down and start rolling back down again. Observe the rotator cuff if it has the tendency to roll forward, if you can keep it neutral, equally engaged at the back and front of your shoulders. And again, this moving away from your stabilized shoulders, this drawing forward, lengthening of your spine. And then enjoy Apanasana as a seal or release. Returning to the primary curve of the spine, a massage, and anchoring. Rise, and let's move on to our next section. So please come with me onto hands and knees. So we change our positioning in the space and the 3D area in space with gravity. So feel that now you can maybe incorporate shoulder movements that you found on the floor here as you're on knees and hands, flowing through cat-cow. So going into an equal flexion of all the vertebrae or the joints in your spine, and then and front extension of the spine. In unison with your breath, sensing support from the front, and then stabilizing with a neutral spine, slight engagement of the core. And then just walk your knees a little bit more forward, come to sitting so your pelvis can rest onto your heels, and just release the wrists from weight bearing. So you know this movement whenever you need it. So your fingers can face backward towards your knees, outside, and your palms are facing the floor, and you can experiment here with what angle suits your wrists and also the inside of your arms so they can release. And experiment with the placement away from your knees, a little bit further or closer to them. And when you found that your elbows are okay, I'm blessed with a lot of flexibility in my joint here, so it's okay for me, it's not burdening from the back of my elbow. And then enjoy shifting from side to side so you can release this inner arm line. and then roll back up again, free neck and head, and return to knees and hands to continue our journey with the shoulders. So you now first have experimented with or experienced stability, and now we go for spontaneous freedom with the marauding bear as we circle a 360-degree shape in space, imagining ourselves kneeling inside a huge sphere and trying to snuggle up to the inner boundary, touching it from side to side, and thereby being gifted with a wonderfully sensual, stimulating, massaging exercise for our whole body, and arriving from within to without, and then integrating again through freedom of shoulders that is stabilized, freedom of spine that is stabilized throughout the core and pelvic floor, so we can move on. Return to neutral. And from here, let's do something for the soles of our feet by coming into toe squat, placing your toes onto the earth and rolling back up, pelvis on heels. If that feels too strenuous for you to keep all your structures in alignment, there are various options you can try. First one being simply come to sitting on your feet without flexing them, but resting on your heels again. And if this gets too exhausting or painful for your knees, just use a block and sit on it as you would if you would meditate. It's all the same. What we're trying to achieve is the base of your skull, or our skull, resting over our pelvic floor and sacrum and being in harmony. So pick whatever krama variation suits you. Feet flexed, feet flat, or on a block. And we are going to fix the rounded upper back and turtleneck head forward position. Remember to keep Mula and Uddiyana Bandha, which is pelvic floor and navel, with ribs integrated. We're going to feel the difference between a chin that's pulling forward, pulling the base of the skull forward over in front of the shoulders, and a moving back of the whole structure of the head on the neck, so the base of the skull or neck can be elongated, hovering over your shoulder girdle. And then release the exercise and come into the shoulder squeeze by again sitting in your preferred position. I picked the sitting on the heels, and I want you to, with an inhale, roll the shoulders slightly forward and up, and with an exhale drop them back and down, and at the end of the exhale squeeze and hold for up to 3 counts, and then release the shoulders again and repeat. Up, forward, inhale, down, back, exhale, end of exhale, squeeze and release. Feel lightness and floatiness in your upper neck or an upper back area. Return to sitting. Remember, you can use the block to sit upright and have the base of the skull or neck hovering over your pelvic floor. And then we're going into mobilization of the spine with a focused intention and attention on our shoulder girdle and back and front of rotator cuff. So from sitting upright, with an inhale, pull yourself forward, with an exhale, round back. And I want you to feel that you're moving from center, supporting your lumbar spine, and observing the rotation in space in front of your rotator cuff, at the height of your collarbones, and at the back, if your shoulder blades glide towards the midline as you sit back up. And then make the movement smaller until they cease and you return to a seated position. And then release from this neutral posture for our next exercise, which includes again the shoulders and mobilization with a sideline release. So sit upright, have your fingers interlaced behind the back of your head, and as you inhale here, with an exhale, drop one elbow towards your sideline and the other one behind the skull of your head or your skull. And make sure that you're not pulling your chin forward or moving your head. And try to go as far as you can from side to side without disturbing your shoulders or your ribs, your core. So it's really an isolation and a mobilization at the same time with, if you feel like, a possible release for your neck by turning the head from right to left. Then enjoy the integrated upright position, and with an exhale, release your arms back down onto the floor again. So as we're still in the movement and mobilization series, we're now going onto our humerus socket, moving in the whole shoulder joint of acromion, shoulder blade, and the socket and humerus head itself. So we're doing the figure eights. Start by having the palm facing upward, elbow at your side. Inhale here, with an exhale, pull the fingers towards your waistline and rotate the whole arm, returning overhead and going or returning back forward into the beginning of our mandala. So we're going from an internal rotation into overhead external rotation for our shoulders and returning to neutral. I want to repeat this 3 times at one side, feeling the width of your collarbone as you stop, and then switching to your other left arm, flowing from beginning internal rotation as you draw the palm down, turn the fingers towards your waistline, and then bringing the arm back overhead, external rotation, returning to the beginning of the mandala, and always doing the movement mindfully with support from your pelvic floor and core and without disturbing your ribs or base of the skull. And then release the left arm, and let's take the challenge. You can, by the way, also do the challenge with 1 or 2 blocks on your hands, but let's take it simple here. So both arms at the same time. With an inhale, pull back, exhale, bring the arms up, inhale here, and with an exhale through external rotation, come back down, and let's do it another round. You can lean forward slightly if you need to. Try to keep the ribs throughout and also the support of your core. And yeah, we're doing it one more time. And exhale, returning to the beginning of the mandala or neutral shoulder girdle. Place your hands onto your knees, release the head, sensing, body sensing, rebounding, and then returning onto hands and knees. And I want your hips to be directly over your knees and remain that way. So no shifting back or forward as we go into Anahata Asana to release the back of our heart or the back or space in between our shoulder blades on our backs. You can place your head or forehead always on a block in front of you, or use a pillow if that's more convenient to you. Or if you have the mobility, the natural mobility in your spine and utilization movement of your sacrum in your pelvis, drop your head completely onto the floor. Your back of your arms, triceps are facing towards the floor. The shoulders are wide, the collarbones are wide, hands released. And gravity is pulling you closer to earth, closer to be in unison and contact with you, deeply immersed and engaged with your physical expression of your being and your path, and at the same time mindful and connected to your heart. Jaya Mudra, the Mudra of victory, both palms in Anjali Mudra, fingers spread behind the base of your skull as you rest here. Release the mudra. Core integrated, flow slowly forward with an inhale, and with an exhale come over Sphinx, back onto hands and knees, and we go into another weight bearing awareness of the shoulder girdle, front of rotator cuff exercise. So please place your shoulder directly over your wrist and make sure your rotator cuff is neutral, so there's a wide collarbone. One knee is on the floor, the other one is leg is straight. And as you integrate core, tailbone to heel, I want you to slightly massage your front rotator cuff area on your right arm as you still keep your core and ribs integrated. And you can deepen the shoulder alignment by letting the upper arm drop on towards the earth, binding your left arm on your right hip. And then keeping the core and spine integrated, turning away from your right arm on the floor, just to play with the extension of the front rotator cuff without going into a back bend, keeping the core and ribs. And then drawing the arms one more time apart as you have freed the upper arm, and return to hands and knees to actually repeat on the other side. Again, left shoulder over left wrist, one knee on the floor, other leg straight. Keep tailbone to heel of right leg. You can massage the front of the rotator cuff or bind. Also another option, right arm on right hip. But first let's massage the rotator cuff a couple of times to feel the space elongating, and then going into the binding variation or exercise by turning away with an integrated spine, a neutral spine without a back bend, away from your left arm towards the sky. A slight and very conscious stretch of the front of the rotator cuff. And then returning back up, releasing this exercise, inhaling as the right arm is up, and then exhaling, placing both hands onto the earth again, and returning to primary spinal curve, child's pose. Rest for a moment, and then ready to move on. Return with an inhale onto hands and knees, neutral spine. And we're going into an exercise for the relation between your neutral or widened shoulder girdle and your thoracic spine or upper and middle back. So with an inhale, draw your whole torso up towards your shoulder blades so that they're the same height. And with an exhale, allow the heart to drop towards the floor. So you actually feel your shoulder blades gliding towards each other a little bit. And a release for the back of your heart. So you feel the difference between neutral and sunken heart. And now we're challenging this with weight bearing. So keep the shoulder girdle neutral, the back of the heart at the same height as your shoulder blades. And then from hands and knees, with an exhale, lift the knees off and then hold it there for a breath. And then returning without anything shifting in the thoracic spine in relation to the shoulders. Lift it off again, and we finally integrate into downward dog. So downward dog is all about a long neutral spine, so the back of the legs can release and there will be more freedom in total for the back line of your body. So take your time to feel this integrated shoulders and spine as we practice and learn today, and then to shift the weight, to bend a knee or then the other just slightly, to feel into your back line, elongating it without losing core, ribs or shoulder girdle. And to connect to your shoulders with an inhale, you can scoop your elbows out to the side, bending them, and with an exhale, drawing them back underneath you. So you feel the neutral shoulder girdle as you descend here into the diamond. Feel the head releasing. And enjoy your breath moving you from the inside, elongating and calming you at the same time. So that with every inhale there can be a rounding of the spine as the air draws in. And with every exhale there can be an integrated sinking, emptying. So that just the act of conscious breathing is a yoga in itself in this pose, an enjoyable sensual massage that teaches you to engage and release, be it physically or mentally. And then slowly come up forward, shoulders over wrists, inhale, and then with an exhale place your knees down. And home stretch, final test for the integration of our shoulder girdle and everything we've learned today. We'll do it in forearm plank with shoulders directly over your elbows, palms facing down on the floor. From here, elongate one leg. You can do this pose one leg at a time. If it gets too heavy for you to do both legs at the same time, then just switch from right to left, keeping the core integrated, no sinking in the lower back. But if you can and wish, step back with both legs at the same time. Draw your tailbone to your heels and then start the breath pulse here. So with an inhale, feel the rounding. The pelvis just lifts a little bit as the back rounds, and with an exhale, find the elongation of the front line, the sternum pulling forward, the core really stable, so as in a beautiful elongation and activation. Hold this and then release the pose into a child's pose, offering your vision to the floor, to the earth. So this was it. I hope you had a really nice shoulder awareness session. Thank you so much for practicing. See you in the next one. Namaste.